Welcome to the Comicstorian channel, where we take some of your favorite video games, movies, and comic books, and we break down the stories within them, presenting them to you as an audio drama, allowing you to keep up with your favorite pop culture universe, even when it goes sprawling into the comic book universe, as Dark Souls has today. Now, Dark Souls is a rather famous video game series, in which it's rather difficult, but it is set in a unique world. And that's pretty much all you're going to need to know for today, what this world is about. You see, today's story is a series of stories, a series of horror stories in the universe of Dark Souls. Stories to be told by a bonfire. You see, in the universe of Dark Souls, a curse has ravaged the land. A curse that causes individuals to be kind of undead. They're almost zombies, but they're not really. And this has led to individuals in various kingdoms looking for ways to stave off the undead hordes out there, while also trying to redeem themselves and bring back their own humanity. It's a rather unique take on a medieval universe, a universe of knights and dragons and magic and horror. And today, you'll be getting some of those stories. Now, if you want to hear us discussing more about various video games, including Dark Souls and other things within the video game universe, please consider looking at our video game channel, Eligible Monster, where we bring you 3 to 4 discussions and various gameplays on a weekly basis here at the team. And you can also find us live playing various video games over at twitch.tv/eligiblemonster. That's all. Now it's time for those stories I promised you. As the black cat hisses the sounds of footsteps, the old woman of the shrine kneels down asking Lathalia, "What's wrong?" The woman looks back to see an armor-clad traveler stepping down the steps and welcomes him into the shrine. She tells him to pay no mind to O Lathalia. Come, sit a spell by the fire and rest thy weary bones. The traveler says no words as he warms himself by the bonfire, and the woman says that thy sigil burns bright. All who bear its burden cross this shrine eventually, but while he's here, would you care for some stories? Look into the flame. Look deep. Know the secrets that burn within. For in these times of darkness, even the bravest of souls needs a light to guide the way. Our first tale is Crossroads. A cursed traveler walks the barren waste as he sees a man strung up on a cross, crows ready to eat his flesh. The prisoner hails to the traveler that he is welcome to continue forward, but he best be warned of the peril that is ahead. The traveler asks why should he take the word of a criminal, and the prisoner says because he can see that they are unfamiliar with these parts. There are dangers that lurk in the shadows, and many dangers await thee. The traveler says that he knows of these dangers well enough. Tell him now who he is. What hast thou done to deserve such a cruel fate? Prisoner says that he is Mortlock of Ithrak. He killed a man who has stolen from him. That man's brother, the lawman, took exception to his actions, and he is one of them, the risen dead. The traveler tells him he is Heroth of a Heromark. He seeks a cure for this curse. Mortlock then says, good fortune beckons thee, for he knows the location of a man who knows of such a cure. Cut him loose and show him the way. Heroth then asks, how can he trust thee? And Mortlock laughs, telling him that thou dost not, for he is a criminal. But it serves him well to be free of these bonds, and for that he shall owe thee greatly. A debt he shall see repaid in full. Heroth begins to cut the binding, stating that he will free him. But know that he shall slice thy throat ear to ear, if thou breakst thy word. Once Mortlock is free, the two travel to the ruins where the man with the cure is said to be. But to pass the time, Mortlock asks Heroth his story. Heroth says his story is a dark and unhappy one, but he shall tell it. Before coming of the curse, the village of Heromark was a small but prosperous haven. He has called it home since the days of his childhood. He has traveled far and wide as a hired blade, and the village would always welcome him back. But one day he came home to find naught but steaming ashes from the charred remains of his kin, all heaped together like tinder for a bonfire. It was then that he learned that the curse came, and in the village's misguided attempt to avoid it, the surviving villagers have razed Heromark to the ground, folk in all. Mortlock tells Heroth to fear not, for they have arrived at the location where they will find the cure. Heroth steps forward and sees a mound of headless bodies scattered about, asking, "What is this?" And Mortlock grabs his sword, swinging it, cutting off the head of Heroth, stating, "This is the only cure for creatures such as thou. Rest well, Heroth of Hollowmark." And that morning, Mortlock ties himself back on the cross, calling out to the next unfortunate cursed soul to wander their way through. Our next tale is known as The Flame's Return. It always comes. It always happens. There is no end, only unstoppable beginnings. Light comes as it always has. Who even remembers their first morning? They foster sorrow for things they've lost. But what grows inside of them for that which keeps returning? As a knight kneels down next to their beloved, they tell her that they fear that she is nothing but a poisoned shadow now, that there is only one reason to take their first step. Why they venture out into this world whose bright flames only make for greater shadows. They learned through action but acted through fear, as all they held dear slowly slipped away. There was but one path forward, and yet that path was always the hardest. Their end was path's beginning, or was it? Day after day, night after night, they would not let the curse claim them. No matter how much they burnt, they would never let this world of ash prevail. One day soon, they will be together again. The journey has taken them across worlds, and eventually, there will be an answer, and someone who will give it. However, in doing so, there was a price. This gift was not a curse, but it was more like justice. When they found this power, they spoke in earnest, and demanded their wish. Never let her die. But wishes? They can be treacherous. It always comes. It always happens. There is no end, only unstoppable beginnings. And so the beloved that was once pure and innocent returns now as a twisted and defiled creature. They wished for her to never die, and now she never will. The Labyrinth. Once the city of Quion was a fruitful and prosperous place. King Mystios was a wise ruler, and the city was surrounded by naught but an ordinary wall. But so many things changed in the wake of the curse. And now the once prosperous city is surrounded by a labyrinth of walls. The swinging pendulum slams its blade into a shambling curse, and King Mystios looks on, stating that this one made it further than the others. Too far. His people have toiled to build this labyrinth against the will of his council, for they have swore it to protect them from the curse. The architect says indeed, the hallowed ones should never have been able to navigate the maze. Perhaps the city calls out to them, but there is one solution. They must extend the labyrinth into the city itself, lest this fate befall all of the subjects. As Quion itself becomes the labyrinth, the king's sleep ever more uneasy. Mystios is awoken by one of his subjects, calling out to him that their city is overrun by the undead. And the king asks, how is it even possible? Where is the architect? His skin will be flayed from his bones. The subject tells him that the architect is in the throne room. He has barricaded himself within. Mystios' emerald ring shines as he calls out that this was the architect's plan all along. He sought to only protect himself. He shall use the ring of power to. But the subject stops him, stating this way. He's sure the exit is this way. And so Quion fell. Its people condemned to the undead, to wander the endless labyrinth until inevitably falling to its foul devices again and again and again. And so goes the tale recounted to him by one unfortunate soul. They told him of the death that lies within, the eternal cycle endured before his final escape, and of his stolen self, his past, his loves, his very name. The traveler marched on, leaving the unfortunate soul at the mouth of the labyrinth, too afraid to either enter or to leave. That poor soul remains there still, forever trapped, racking his skull for the memories ever lost to him, wandering the barren labyrinth of his own. May the gods have mercy upon him, whomever he may be. And as the soul stares at the burning fire, the ring of emerald shines upon his withered hand. Now we return to the shrine to continue our tale as the old woman asks the traveler, does he see the thread? It weaves throughout all things, coiling, stumbling, strangling those who'd see its knots entwined. And still thou wishes to play the tailor? The traveler says not a word, and the old woman says that she sees the horrors of this world, has stilled thy tongue, no matter, for she has much to impart. As the traveler lays down to rest, the old woman pets Lathalilia, stating that this soul is a valiant, but a foolish one. And what does thy heart suppose? Is it a champion in their midst? The one destined to usher disparity? Lathalia looks up at the woman, and as they set their head back down, they tell her perhaps. Before long, the traveler opens his eyes to hear Lathalia's voice stating, my, he slumbers deep this one. The old woman sits in her chair, stating, aye, but restless too, I warrant, for the dreaming realm offers little solve from these unforgiving lands. The traveler leans up, and the old woman asks, that thy vigor is restored, which path shall he walk at the crossroad? Follow yonder staircase to Vondran's Keep, where the blind banneret watches. To the west, the low marshes will take thee to the heart of the blackened domain. Or if thou seeketh fortune, traverse the fog and claim thy just reward. But before thy choice is made, perhaps another lesson would be prudent. If thy heart is steeled, let them begin again. Our next tale is The Devoted. A traveler climbs atop a mountain to find many others like himself turned to stone. He has wandered forlorn lands, ascended crimson towers to battle dread beasts in the name of duty to keep this kingdom safe. He has seen the skies turned black with arrows, seen battlefields slickened with the blood of his brothers in arms. He alone has lived to tell the tale, and yet from his beloved he has gained naught but a single gift, a token given to him begrudgingly, with a look of pique. He was always a loyal soldier, a warrior who would give his life in the service to his people, but now it is only her that he serves. He often wondered if others had grown to love her the way that he does. How could they not? For she is a creature of beauty and grace, in a world full of monsters. The creature looms from the shadows, casting her gaze upon the knight in an attempt to turn him to stone, just as the others before him. He dodges, he swings, but the giant spider knocks the knight down, disarming him. She screams as the knight reaches for his sword, turning his arm to stone. But that does not stop our knight. Instead, he uses that arm of stone to hit the creature with all his might, and his arm shatters as the creature is felled. In the traveler's mind, he shouts, no, this cannot be. The knight climbs atop the creature, stabbing down into her neck, spraying her blood all over the men, forever locked in a state of stone. And the traveler watches helplessly as this knight, this monster, ravages his love's beauty, his bloodlust finally quenched. Our next tale is that which holds us human. As the curse has spread throughout the lands, a knight travels to do what he can to stop it from consuming the world. Humanity is but a mote of fire caressing in the endless void, shouting its name, convinced that it will live forever, just like an arrogant childhood. But the maddened faith is also a kind of power in its own way. The wise know its secrets. They know the flame cannot be absolute, but it can be torn from the trembling cage of the heart, devoured, just as they are devoured by the cursed hollow as well. The hallowed know not what else to do but to take the humanity from the living and offer it to her. She is no more their lady than the bonfire is the sun. They are dying. They are still dying. But that flame that throbs behind the ribs of men, which holds them human, it can hold the dark at bay, just for a little while at least. And so they keep the flame alit as she once did. They will stay alive. They will wait for her. They will wait for any other wandering soul unfortunate enough to cross their path. Our last story of the day is the action replay. A man sits up from his bed knowing one thing. Death thrives here. He can smell it, and he knows what he must do. The man calls out to the guards, and soon the cursed open the cell door. The man asks where is he and what do they want. The cursed tell him to come. Allow them to tend to his binds. It is time to fight what remains of thy paltry existence. The man steps into the Colosseum, standing before a giant, hulking man as hundreds of cursed cheered, calling for his death. The man knows not how he came into this hellish place, but he sees now that he has little choice. There will be time for questions later, but now he must fight and survive. The giant lunges forward and the man swipes, cutting into that giant's flesh. The giant swings his arm back, stunning the man, and he shouts, "Die, creature of darkness!" And with one swing of the axe, the giant's axe is lodged into that man's skull. The crowd roars at the man's defeat, and soon the cursed come to pick up the body and the head. As he's set back down in his bed, one cursed tells the other to hurry up. Thou shalt send the outsider out next. The crowd bays for further bloodshed. The man's head is placed back onto his body, and another cursed scratches one more mark into the stone. The man soon wakes up and is sent out to fight again, and he dies. He wakes up again and he's sent out to fight, and he dies. He wakes up again, and he tells himself that death thrives here. He can smell it, and he knows what he must do. And there are our tales of the world of Dark Souls. Now, these are just some fun horror stories to tell, scary stories to tell at a campfire or a bonfire. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you want more video game-related comic books such as this one, or the Division comic book, or more Life is Strange, or more Bloodborne, let me know in the comments down below. As a part of our push into video game culture, we're continuing to cover the game storylines and to cover the comics related to them. And one game we haven't touched on yet is the actual plot to the real Dark Souls games. So let me know what you're looking for down below. More video game comic books, or do the plot behind some of your favorite games, like continuing God of War or the Dark Souls plot. I'll see you guys next time right here, and if you want to tell me about your favorite video game, consider going over to my Twitter. Let me know, at Comicstorian, what games you enjoy and what you want me to cover, or let me know, like I said, in the comments down below. I'll see you next time.